Alright, so hi guys, welcome to another video with me Mahesh. I'm so excited to have you here today. This video has been in the works for quite a while. You could almost argue it's been in the works for 5 years. The mistakes that I'm going to talk about are obviously from my journey with Moonrise. For those that are new to the channel, I'll link a video here so you get to know more about myself. But I've been building businesses before, and Moonrise is my 5th startup, and this startup almost destroyed everything that I've built. Everything from my savings to my personal relationship to you name it, it's probably destroyed it. But we are in the process of getting everything back, so the journey is wonderful. For those that are in a hurry, the 5 startup mistakes I'm going to talk about is to really know the difference between having a lifestyle business versus a venture-backed business. It's a huge difference. It's night and day if you understand that. The second mistake is about not niching down. There are a lot of videos about niches. I'm going to really try to condense the essence of what I've learned trying to figure out a niche, what the usual psychological barriers are for founders like you and me to niche down, and give you toolkits to address that. The third thing is about speed and direction. If you're like me and you come from the startup world, you know that speed is everything. But really, what nobody taught me was about direction. And if you get the direction right, speed will come automatically. But nobody talks about direction. I want to talk about that. And that's a huge mistake that we've made, where we just focus on speed and not on direction. The fourth thing is about no lead generation. So here I want to talk about why you can get so busy with your trying to build your idea, whether you're going from 0 to 1 or 1 to 10 in terms of revenue, in terms of stage. But really, what's the most important thing in your business is your customers and demand, generating demand. And if you don't have demand, you have no business, right? And the last thing I want to talk about is human teams versus human plus AI teams. And this is a subject I'm really passionate about because I've spent the last at least 6 months trying to integrate AI into Moonrise, and the results are starting to show, and I want to share them with you. So let's get into it. So how I lost my 1.1 million euro startup, which is the amount of money that I myself put in along with some investors, and some of the costly mistakes to avoid. Okay. So to just give you some background, my wife was ignored by the healthcare system after the birth of our kids. Obviously, some of these are in Swedish. If you're not familiar with Swedish, what it basically says is that many women have the same problem, but very few get help. And my wife was in this health gap, right? So she had a lot of issues after the birth of our second child, but then she took matter into her own hands and found her health back, and she did a lot of different types of exercises, everything from postural exercises, breathing exercises, diet, all kinds of lifestyle changes. And it took a while, but she got her health back. And her journey was the inspiration behind Moonrise. So Moonrise is our holistic pelvic health studio for women, and this is what me and her run. Right? So this is the base in which I'm going to talk about this in the video. So we took in $1.5 million or 1.1 million euros at a 5.5 million euro valuation, and we got some of the best angels in Europe. So we got like a guy that's been named 3 years in a row as one of the best EU angels. We have a large family office from Sweden. We have women-only fund. We have a head of a large Scandinavian bank. We have a CEO of a large healthcare company in Sweden. I mean, we were getting really good traction and a lot of really good investors that joined our business. And it's not my first rodeo, but man, has this been a struggle, because I've been building companies before. For those that are new to the channel, so I started Fitness Collection that was acquired by ClassPass. So we took in again capital, we raised the company, and we were not profitable, but we sold the business to ClassPass. Before that, I was part of Imagine. I was not part of starting it, I was part of scaling it. We took in more than 160 million euros to really build Spotify for TV. Then I was part of starting Epicenter, which is a co-working house. And if you Google Visit Stockholm, like things to do in Stockholm, you will see Epicenter is one of the things to do. It's become a cultural landmark. And we also have like our own series, our own episode on Netflix, because we used to do a lot of biohacking and put chips under people's skin instead of regular keys. So we're pretty funky, This is not my first rodeo with Moonrise, but man, there's been a struggle, and these are the 5 mistakes I wish somebody told me. So the first one is the lifestyle versus venture funded. So first of all, not all business ideas are the same. Not all businesses are created the same. So if you're there watching, you've started a project, it's starting to get some traction. You're really in the process of making you can pick one of 2 choices, right? You can either say, I'm going to keep running it like the way I'm running it, which is a lifestyle business and it serves me, or I'm going to really take in capital and try to make a dent, right? So, and if you look at the graph here on the right, you have companies that the apps that you use, the products that you use are most likely venture funded companies. Like you have Apple, Tesla, Spotify, a lot of your apps on your phone, Instagram, Meta, Facebook, they're all venture funded. And then on the other side, you have lifestyle businesses. These are creator businesses that you see on Kajabi or Teachable or even on YouTube, right? So, and obviously I want to make a difference between freelancers and lifestyle businesses, because freelancers are people that are still selling time for money. And lifestyle businesses could do that, but you have an LLC or you have an Inc. or you have like a GmbH in Germany. So you have like a formal organization behind you that you're not just a freelancer. And instead of finding employment, you're freelancing, right? So I'm leaving the freelancers out of this. So you basically started a business in one form. You could just be the sole proprietor in the business, but still you have a business mindset, and you really want to figure out how to go from there, right? So if you're in the lifestyle business side, it's really to focus on supporting your desired lifestyle. It's all about your autonomy. It's about focusing on steady, sustainable income. And a lot of times it's about your own interest, pain, or passion. So if you're a designer and you like to design things, maybe that's what you're doing, right? And or if you're into copywriting and you have a copywriting network with 2 other people, no, that's your passion, right? Or it's a pain point, like Moonrise is a pain point where Philippa didn't get the support she needed, so we ended up creating the business. And on the other hand, you have venture-funded businesses, which could also start from pain or passion or interest. But the whole idea of a venture-funded business is to provide returns for your investors. So that's a huge part of why you're building the business. Obviously, you want to create a market, you want to serve your customers, but returning money for your investors is in the top 3 of your agenda, right? As a founder or as a CEO. You're building a team, you're spending money, and you're trying to create value. Okay, and this value can be paper value or it could be real value. And you need to grow and scale at a certain cadence. So most investors want you to go out and raise more capital in the next 18 to 24 months because that increases the value in the company, which increases the value in their portfolio because they have to go out and raise capital on their side. So it's all sort of a nested game here. And a lot of times, it's more important to grow than trying to be profitable. So if I look at my own example with Magin, we took in 160 million euros. There was no chance we're going to be profitable with that, with that capital. It was going to take a while. And a lot of companies that you know, that you love, a lot of the services that you love, that give away so much value for so little money, like Netflix, for instance, that gives you like millions of dollars worth of content for like $10 a month, or Amazon or Spotify, or it took a lot of time for them to get profitable because somebody kept funding them. And that's a venture-funded business. And most of you watching this channel probably already know the difference, but I want to take some time for you to understand that there is clearly a difference between the type of business you're building. And if you have some companies right in the middle. So for instance, one of my favorite companies from Sweden called Mentimeter, they didn't take any capital. I don't know what their status is today, but they didn't take any capital. They grew to like 60, 80 people back then. I think like 150, 200 people now, maybe even more. But they grew completely organically, and that's called a bootstrapped company. So you have venture level ambition, but you don't want venture capital. You're just putting your own time, sweating it out, and waiting for you to get money. And you're not taking all the profits into your pocket, but instead you're reinvesting back in the company to keep growing. And that's a bootstrapped startup, and that's a great form of a startup. It's really hard, obviously. On the other hand, a lifestyle business is really there to serve the lifestyle of you as the founder. It could be 2, 3 people running the company, and you want to have a pretty good lifestyle. But if you start as a lifestyle business, the whole goal of the business is to serve you. But I want to give you some statistics here and then I want to tie it back to the learnings from Moonrise. So 86% of lifestyle businesses or SMEs make less than $100,000 a year. So you can argue $100,000 is a lot of money. You can argue it's no money. It depends on where on the scale you are. So for those that have ambitions that are greater than $100,000 a year, you need to have in mind that at some point you need to start creating systems around you. And this is why mistake number 5 in the whole AI space is really exciting. So you have to stick around and watch the video till the end, because I'm going to talk to you about how you can really start as a lifestyle business or come to a certain point and then add AI to really supercharge your growth without compromising on the beauty of the lifestyle business principles, which are like you get a lot of autonomy, a lot of freedom, and the business works for you, not the other way around. But on the other hand, if you look at the venture-funded business, right, 25% of VC companies are the ones that give you positive ROI. Now, bear in mind, a lot of companies don't even get VC funding. So you might come up with an idea, and you might never get VC funding, right? Now, to go through that cut, and then another cut, which is like a 75% cut, where those companies never make any capital back for the investor. It's pretty scary. So you have scariness on both sides. You have a $100,000 sort of ceiling you need to escape from, and you have a very low success rate as a VC capital backed startup. And one of my, maybe 15 years ago, one of the earliest books I read was from this guy called Derek Sivers, who started a company in the early 90s or late 90s with the early dot-com boom called CD Baby. And he sold it and he made some money, I'm not sure how much, but not too big an exit if I remember right. But he was talking about how amazing it is because he gets his lifestyle. And his principle was, you work for the business. Do you work for the business or does the business work for you? And this is a key question, okay? So what I've done is I've created a very simple checklist. You can download, it's a Google Doc, you can just duplicate it and answer the questions and you get some clarity on where you are. So if you started off as a project, as a freelancer, and you want to go this path, it's a pretty good handy checklist. If you're already running your business, you have 3, 4 people, and you're sort of contemplating where to go, it's a pretty good checklist. And if you've already made your path of a venture-backed startup, but you've been doing it for like 5, 6 years like I have, and you're sort of figuring out where is this going, this is a pretty good checklist too. So please take a look. Now, what happened with Moonrise for us was we obviously started off as a venture-backed startup. I mean, that's at least how I've always wanted to build my companies, for good or bad, because that's at least how I've always done it. And now I'm starting to really rethink if that's the way I want to do it going forward. But what happened was we couldn't raise capital after 2023 because the markets were so shit and we didn't have enough traction. So we had our unit economics was pretty poor. So we had, for every dollar we invested, we got, I think, $1.70 back. So our lifetime was not great. So we need to get at least 3 back. And we're not even getting, for every dollar, we're not getting 3 back. It's hard, and most venture capitalists look for like 5, 6 back, because that's when they know that there is enough buffer, because that number is going to go down over time, right? So 1 to 1.7 was not enough. Markets were shit, and even I couldn't use my pedigree to really raise capital. So when I realized that in July 2023, it was pretty tough, because what I realized was that now I've locked myself into a corner. I need to put my own capital, which is what I've done, which was hard because, obviously I don't have too much capital, but the capital I had was, the way I was thinking about it was, it's more like my savings plan, and I don't need to take out salaries. But now I didn't even have to pay myself a salary, but I also had to put money back in the business, which is really hard. So we went into survival mode, and obviously when you're in survival mode, you cut cost. And what the beauty about having a survival mode attitude is that all of a sudden you go from really laser focusing on what's important and how to really survive, and that gives you a lot of clarity. And I'm going to save that for another video, but so we went into survival mode, and it was obviously very hard, because obviously running a business with kids and with your wife and you're surviving as a family, because obviously it's taking a toll on your family and taking a toll on your business and your time. It's been pretty hard. But now we're profitable, we are growing, we are happier than ever as a couple, as co-founders, as teammates, and we are making more money than ever. We're getting more happier customers than ever. And I've done a separate video on that, on some of the changes we've done. So I'll link it somewhere up here, so you can take a look at some of the key changes we've done. So I'm figuring out, okay, what's the next step here? Because we're profitable, we can just start paying dividends versus taking on more capital and growing. So if I went back in time, I'd redo Moonrise completely. I'd started off as a lifestyle business. I would not have taken all the money. I'd have put in my own capital a little bit, not as much as I've ended up doing, because with the no-code tools, which I'm going to talk about later in this video, AI automation flows and everything that's possible today with so limited capital is a game changer, right? But the key point here is that you need to really make up your mind if you're building a lifestyle business or a venture-funded business. The second mistake I'm going to talk about is not niching down enough. And lots has been spoken about this mistake. But I want to start off by talking about how to pick a niche and then concept of niching down. So a lot of times, how to pick a niche is about you have your own itch that you're trying to solve, right? Like in this case, Philippa had her own itch. She had a lot of issues with her healthcare, with her own health, and she got no help from the healthcare system. And that's why we started this. Or you have lots of passion about the topic. For instance, I love building businesses. I love tech. I love everything around it. So that's my passion, right? Or you have pedigree, right? You've been doing something for like 5 years, 10 years. You've already exchanged your time for value in some form, either as an employee or as a consultant or whatever. So that's a great start. Then you have a growing niche, obviously, right? You have a growing industry. You don't want to be selling to a market that is declining, because that's hard. You can reach them, number 3, right? You want to find a way to reach people, and in a cost-effective way, ideally. Either you know them, or you can reach them on LinkedIn, or they exist somewhere, and it's not hard to find them, right? So for instance, if you're going to say that, I want to find physiotherapists that are very specialized, like we do, it gets very hard to find them, But instead, on the other hand, if you say, I'm going to try to find nurses, it's much, much more wider, right? So you need to find a way to reach them, and they have money. They are ready to pay money for your time, because at the end of the day, if you don't make money, there's no business, right? Now, when you think about this, at that level, everybody agrees, but the problem is the concept of niching down. And the concept of niching down feels really weird, because the first objection that comes to mind is my idea deserves a bigger audience. The business I'm building deserves a bigger audience. And I'm going to give you a classic example with Moonrise and how we started and where we are today, so you really understand this. But my idea deserves a bigger audience is a classic fallacy. I remember when we started Moonrise, actually it was not a pelvic health company, it was a women's health company. We were trying to do all kinds of symptoms. I'm going to show some examples for you. But the idea of niching down for me was me feeling like I'm letting go of my vision. And that's not true at all. What you're basically doing is you're letting go of you're sharpening your go-to-market, but you're making your vision stronger. Because once you get your go-to-market right by niching down and you start winning and making money, you can start going towards your vision and building your road there, right? Second, the objection is I'll leave money on the table because if I go too small, I'm not making enough money. And again, I'm going to show you examples that that's not true. I'll get bored or stuck. It's not as exciting, which is really true because a lot of times, especially in the early stages of starting a business, there's so much romance, there's so much excitement. Everything is new, everything's exciting. But when you start niching down, it feels like it's the opposite. You're not enjoying yourself. But I would compare it to like having a consistent workout routine. So, when you do something new, first couple of weeks are exciting, but week 6, week 8 of doing the same workout routine gets a little boring, right? But you start doing it for the results. You start finding other ways to do it. That's my observation of my own self, that it's not about getting bored or feeling stuck. It's about committing to a routine that makes sense, right? And in this case, you're committing to a niche based on certain qualifications that I'm going to show you. So you feel confident that that niche is going to get you to your next step. And that answers what if I pick the wrong niche, right? Because you need to be clear that you're going to pick the right niche. You don't want to be picking the wrong niche, obviously. Innovation bias is that you're focused a lot on the idea versus execution. So a lot of times winning in business is about execution and not about the idea. And even if you have the world's best idea but horrible execution, nobody's going to care about you. But if you have great execution and a bad idea, you have a pretty good chance of winning, right? So execution has so much more, it's so much more important than the idea itself. So these are some of the objections. So let me just share with you how we started. So when we started, it was called Women's Cycles back then, and we wanted to, the way I went out to raise this million euros was that I said there are millions of women out there, and we've catalogued over 4,000 symptoms that are classified by NHS as benign, where the healthcare system is not prioritizing them, and women are typically more affected than men. My wife is a living example. I've catalogued all these 4,000 plus symptoms. They go all across the body, across all age groups, and I want to be the go-to platform for women to find help. So we started off with all women with 4,000, and all my investors loved it, right? I got capital, as I showed you before. But raising capital from investors and going to market are not the same thing. Your investors might love it, but your market might hate it, or they don't get it, right? So you really need to understand the signals and the difference between these two different target groups that you're working with if you're going venture funded route. But all women with 4,000 plus symptoms is too broad. Even though you can say it's not all women in the world, true, but it's still pretty broad. All women in the West with 4,000 plus symptoms is when we started narrowing down, and it was still very broad. And then we said, okay, let's not focus on 4,000 symptoms, let's focus on 80 symptoms, because those are the creators or the practitioners that we ended up having on our platform to begin with. Okay, so we ended up, I think, like 35 practitioners, and they covered about 80 symptoms. So we're like, okay, let's just focus on them. And then we realized, well, we couldn't monetize all of these symptoms. People didn't want to pay money for fibromyalgia, or people didn't want to pay money for PCOS. Although they had these issues, they don't want to pay money for it. So we ended up saying, okay, nobody's paying money for that. Let's just focus on what my wife went through and came out, and that we have the most pedigree around. And it was just prolapse. So we went from 4,000 symptoms, all women in the world, to just women with prolapse in the West. And then we focused it even further down to saying women with prolapse in just Sweden. And that's how we started. That's how we restarted, rather, because if you look at some of our old communication and our old website, which I'm going to show you, it was like, I was like, what were we doing? Because when you were look at the Be the Woman You Are, courses that help you discover, learn, grow, and heal was our first sort of iteration of the idea of Women's Cycles with 4,000 plus symptoms, starting then going down to 80. Was on the right, it says from pelvic dysfunction to complete freedom, unlock natural healing. And that's much more clearer because it's clear it's for women with pelvic dysfunction, right? And now we're doing it in English, and you can see the flag on top, which is the Swedish flag. And that's how we started. But niching down feels scary, but the benefits far outweigh your feelings, and you really need to work through with your feelings here. Because when you have targeted communication, it lowers your CAC, it lowers your acquisition cost. When you have higher referral rates, because people hopefully like your product in that niche, you have greater word of mouth, you have greater organic ranking, that also lowers your cost of acquisition. And if you have lower cost of acquisition, you can grow your business more profitably. And the most important other part of this equation is repeatable delivery. So when you know that you're going after the same customer group, you know how to serve him or her well, you can start standardizing that. And when you start standardizing that, you get much higher margins. So really niching down is fantastic for business because you can repeat yourself, you can get better customers, you can get word of mouth, and you can really start scaling within that niche. Obviously, you need to be clear how you pick that niche, which I'm going to talk to you about in a second. So some pointers to help you niche down is which niche do you enjoy to serve, which is a very important question, especially if you're doing a lifestyle business, right? Like, you don't want to be working with a niche that you don't enjoy. So for instance, I have a business that I started where we import containers and make them into kitchens in Sweden. And we build like container parks, which are very cool urbanistic projects, like with shipping containers on top of each other. I don't enjoy working with that niche because I work with restaurant owners that are mom and pop shops that don't pay on time. They're not professional. They are typically very lowly educated, and they don't pay. So I don't enjoy that niche anymore. I wish I didn't pick that niche. So it's very important you enjoy the niche you work with. And you want to obviously figure out which niche will pay you, has the pain point. Which niche do you associate yourself with, which is a great starting point, or have the most pedigree. Another way to think about it is which niche has the highest network effects. So in Moonrise, we don't have that much network effects because women with pelvic floor dysfunction don't want to talk with somebody else about it. It's a taboo topic. But imagine you have a business that has a lot of network effects in a particular niche because that subculture really likes to talk with each other. Then it becomes pretty interesting. So Epicenter is one of that example where we had really high network effects because we focused on people that were driving real innovation. And if you're like really moving the needle, you talk with others that are really moving the needle and you want them to belong with you, right? So network effects becomes really strong. The other point is which niche can you reach the easiest? You look at your own LinkedIn, look at your own Instagram, whatever platform you're going to target. Which kind of people do you know? And then again, AI tools that can do this job for you. So you can work with reasoning models like Perplexity reasoning or ChatGPT reasoning, O3, or one of these models, and really put in all the data from Instagram and say, okay, what kind of people do I seem to have, or LinkedIn, what kind of people do I seem to have? Scrape your own LinkedIn and figure this out, right? So mistake number 2 is feeling fearful of niching down. I hope I've convinced you that it's super important that you niche down. So let's go to mistake number 3. All right, let's go to mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is focused on speed versus direction. So if you're like me, from the same cut from the cloth of the world of startups, you have quotes like this, that startups that succeed are those that manage to iterate enough times before running out of resources. So speed, keep iterating. Our success at Amazon is a function of how many experiments we do per week, per month, per week, per day, and that was Jeff Bezos. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product you've launched too late, that's the co-founder of LinkedIn. So these are people that you idealize, right? And these are people that have gone the other side and really shown that it's possible to be successful as a founder. And these are their truths, which I'm not debating that these are wrong. I'm just saying that sometimes it's over-exaggerated what that actually means. And for me, I was obsessed with trying to get speed. I was obsessed with weekly experiments. I was obsessed getting users, tweaking and tweaking. I was obsessed building MVPs and launching and tweaking. I was obsessed with coming up with new products around what we're trying to do and coming up with pricing. And at the end of the day, after like a year of doing it, I realized I didn't come out smarter because there were some fundamental things that we didn't do. So all our experiments started drowning us because we had too many arrows, we had too little focus. My team was completely confused. We had customer support from customers that had a plan X, and we had customer support from customers that had plan Y. My customer support teams were overwhelmed, but we were not making enough money. We were doing poor execution. We were giving unclear signals in the market. We had demotivated teams. And let's face it, it's very hard to get your first employees, and a lot of them don't have the startup mindset. And if you don't have the startup mindset, all these experiments create a lot of fear. I didn't realize that till I heard this quote from Oscar Wilde, that if a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing well. If it's worth having, it's worth waiting for. If it's worth attaining, it is worth fighting for. And if it's worth experiencing, it's worth putting aside time for. And this is really what embodies, especially my wife and my co-founder's principle, but more and more of my own principle as well, that if it's worth doing, let's do it well. That doesn't mean that you need to take 5 years to ship your product, but it also doesn't mean that you need to keep experimenting. Here's my revised theory. My revised theory is get your direction right first. Then if it works, make a conscious choice depending on the type of business you're building to run fast. So let me explain what I mean by direction. I've been really fortunate to come across a couple of interesting work. One of them is from a wonderful lady named April Dunford. I'm going to leave her link below. And she talks about positioning. And for me, that is a clear example of a good direction that you really think about. But what it is that, okay, what are you trying to do? And how do your customers already get this job done, right? So what are your competitive alternatives? Now, the second thing is what makes you unique, okay? And how do you provide that unique value? And who cares about this? Which group of people are going to care about this unique value? And hence, you figure out the market to win, right? And as a small company just getting started, you can just go do this process a couple of times and you'll get lots more clarity. Just starting with thinking clearer. Instead of trying to get more speed in a wrong direction, if you think clearer and take time to think clearer, and then get speed, you're going to get a lot more out of it, right? So really it's what, who, how. What are you trying to do? Why is that unique? Who is it for? Like, who's going to care about this unique thing? And how are you going to deliver that value, that unique value, right? This is literally it. So you need to really get your positioning and value prop right. Otherwise, everything else is a waste. So in our case with Moonrise, we were going between selling one-on-one coaching between all our different practitioners that we had, to selling courses, to doing community-based programs. We tried all kinds of things. But literally, the differentiated positioning, which I'm going to show you here, which is the positioning canvas, is literally the differentiated positioning was that people wanted non-invasive, natural, holistic exercises. And what was unique for us was we aggregated everything. So you don't have to go and search. We put it all in one place. We gave you live help that was personalized to you. That was it. It was no more rocket science than that. I was trying to find the golden nugget beyond that. I was like, oh, there must be more, there must be more. I was never convinced, but I was like, no, this is it. People want aggregated support. They don't want to be bouncing between 10 different therapists and practitioners. They want all in one place. They want live help, so they get help to their terms, however the hell they want it, and they want it to be personalized for them. And our value was that we had all these different practitioners that were doing different kinds of therapy in one place. We had first-hand experience, the team had first-hand experience doing this themselves and walk through the path themselves. And we say, if you don't get your health back within a certain period of time, you get your money back, And customer segments that cared were, initially, they were the customers that really believed in alternative things, and they didn't want to go back to their doctor. Like my wife, because she didn't feel supported by the healthcare system. So she was like, I'm not even going back. And those were our initial customers. And then over time, as we kept growing, it became more and more customers that have gone through the doctor, spent a lot of years and money and time, and then they come out disgruntled, right? So they start getting no results from the traditional system. Obviously, these are women that have symptoms that we're targeting. So really, the positioning canvas is your direction. If you don't get this direction right, and this is not clear in your team or in your own head, you need to spend time thinking clearer. Don't do any experiments. Don't get any excited about your website. Don't get excited about growing or scaling, because maybe you got your first 5 customers because you're well known, or LinkedIn post that you did really helped out, or and so you need to go back and look at why you're where you are and really get the positioning right. If you don't get the positioning right, you're not going to get your direction right. And if you're not going to get your direction right, speed in the wrong direction is a complete waste of time. So I wish I could go back and take away 3 years of my first 3 years at Moonrise. Not really, because I learned a lot. I heard a quote yesterday from Alex Hormozi, which was, either your business is growing or you are growing. And in this case, my first 3.5 years with Moonrise I was completely growing, because looking back, because I was just making all these mistakes. So look at April Dunford, and I'll make sure I link her work below, and you can find a lot of her templates for free. And the other 2 articles that also link below is the minimum viable testing process, instead of trying to build a product, like how do you test, and how to find product market fit. I'm going to leave those links below. All right, let's go to mistake number 4. So this sounds weird because it's so basic, but again, sometimes fundamentals. So no lead generation, no leads, no business. So focus on lead generation, everything else will follow. If you can get enough people caring about your work, you'll get enough business going, and if you get enough business going, you'll figure everything else out. The principle is that if you get enough customers, you'll figure everything else out. But a lot of times I meet founders that are obsessed on their website. They're obsessed about how everything looks. They're obsessed about their logo's last little detail that nobody cares about, especially in your early stage. Nobody cares about it except you. So when you start doing things only you care about, and it's more focused on your ego rather than what the market cares about, you start losing. And lead gen is one of those things. If you keep generating demand, your business will come, right? And I want to credit Daniel Priestley here, because he keeps saying a business with enough demand will always survive. And it all starts from demand generation. And one of the things about demand generation is, a lot of times I see, including myself, that's what we did with Moonrise, we're just focusing on a solution. So we're talking about a solution a lot of times, and we're not talking about the problem. So an example here is, if you ask a room of people, how many of you feel you can work with your weight more and sort of your health more? 8 out of 10 are going to probably raise their hands, right? Compared to saying, how many of you want to do CrossFit tomorrow? And that's probably going to be 2 out of 10, right? People are not aware of CrossFit, and they don't know what to expect, and they're not sure if it's for them. But on the other hand, they know that they have a weight issue or a health issue, right? So you really need to focus on how you communicate about the problem or the pain or the outcome you're trying to drive, right? Instead of talking about your solution. Because if you do that, your leads will start coming to you, because the one that actually shows them the path and eliminates that path is going to be the most trustworthy partner for them to get to that outcome. I have a video about this whole concept. I'm going to leave that there so you can go watch it. But what we did at Moonrise was that today, we don't market our programs anymore. We just market our waiting list. So our waiting list is where we build demand. And once we get 500 women on our waiting list, we open up slots and 50 women take it. And each of them pays about $1,400. So every time we open up sales, we make about, $60,000 to $70,000. We have some upsells and so on. And then the $70,000, $100,000, whatever we collect, also then translates into a membership after that. So ones that are wanting to stay, continue with us for 12 more months after that. So we start with a 12-week, and then there's a 12-month program. It's all done in groups. So it's like these 50 women get paired up, and they work with each other, and they have fun. It's all wonderful and hunky-dory. But before we got here, to figure out that we had to try 500 leads and have a waiting list was just revolutionary. Because before that, we were just trying to get people into our product, right? But now we've completely changed our communication to focus on the problem rather than the solution. Economics 101 is supply demand, right? So if you constrain supply, demand is going to go up. So you need to really figure out how many customers do I want to work with this year or this month or this quarter. And that's it. You communicate that. It's transparent. Everybody knows I'm going to take in 10 customers, and then you're going to build demand for those 10 customers, right? So you're going to say 10 customers, but now I have 100 people on the waiting list, 100 people in the queue, or my calendar is completely booked. Then people want to start working with you. Again, I'm not doing justice to the whole concept. I'm going to leave some links here for you to go deeper. But what we've started doing is, instead of focusing on our product and our solution, we're focusing on the problem and communicating everything around the problem and really raising awareness around the problem. We also wrote a book about this called Super Healers, where we just speak about the problem pelvic floor dysfunction and talk about different solutions out there. And obviously, we promote Moonrise at some point. But it's on Amazon. It's a full-fledged book. We give it away for free digitally. And there's a completely different strategy compared to talking about your product and your little ecosystem that many people, frankly, don't care about yet. So I also want to point out that a scorecard, which again, I speak about in the video, is a great tool because it helps your customers qualify and go from this problem-aware state to solution-aware state. So the way we do our scorecard is talk about how functional your pelvic floor is, which is basically what people are saying, hey, I'm not sure if I have pelvic floor dysfunction, or I have pelvic floor dysfunction, but how bad is it really? Because it's one of these things that keep growing over time, and you're not very sure where you are. It's like having knee pain. It's like, yeah, I have some knee pain, I live with it, so you can kind of live with some of the pelvic floor symptoms. So we really give you an assessment to help you understand, do you really have an issue, or how urgent is your issue? And if it is urgent, what should you do about it? And we present different ideas depending on who you are, how much budget you have, and so on. So it feels like a lot of value that we give away for free, and we are the ones that sort of eliminate their path and the next steps, and we become a trusted partner. So that is number 4. Really focus on lead generation. Everything else will follow. If you had nothing else to do today, just focus on demand generation. If you get demand generation right, everything else will follow. Mistake number 5 is having an expensive team and not using AI. You need to have an in-house tech team because you're running a tech company, or you need to have marketing, content, and sales team to scale. In my previous company at Imagine, we used to burn €1 million a month in staff, and at Moonrise, we used to burn $80,000 a month in staff. I burn nothing anymore, and I make a lot more money because of AI workflows, which I'm going to talk about. So you have old truths and new truths, and we are in the world of new truths here, where small AI-augmented teams will outperform traditional teams. Mark my words. This is happening right now in front of your eyes. We're starting to use a lot of automations in Moonrise, and it's literally, saving us a lot of money. So you have old truths, which is you need a lot of team to scale. The new truth is AI plus automation can do a lot more than you believe. I'm not saying it's going to replace humans. Humans that can operate these machines are going to unlock a lot more productivity than you'd ever see. Humans need to collaborate was the old truth, but humans plus AI needs to collaborate. So I visualize a world where you have a human org chart and an AI org chart with different agentic systems, and they're going to collaborate with each other. And it's going to be a beautiful future. You need in-house developers. That's an old truth. You don't need them in most cases. Some cases you obviously do. But in most cases, you can start with no-code tools and you can vibe code. What is vibe coding? Vibe coding is a term coined by Andre Karpathy, who was part of the FST team in Tesla. And basically, you're programming with an AI. And this is something I do. I started to do a lot now the last few months. Basically, you're giving prompts in English and you're getting output in JavaScript or JSON or Python or whatever your language is. It doesn't matter. You don't even need to know the language. You're just giving English prompting and you get output back in the format that makes sense for your next step. And that's vibe coding, where you're working with the AI and you're training the AI and you're figuring out how to build whatever you're trying to build. And this is magical. So I'm using vibe coding for my own little projects. I'm using vibe coding for Moonrise, obviously, to set up all different content systems and sales systems. So it's phenomenal what you can do, which I used to do with a team of 6 people. Now I have no-code tools that cost me less than $200 a month, and I'm vibe coding a couple of hours a week to really get lots more output than what I used to have. And the old truth is also to build your staff with managers and so on. But now I think you can upskill your staff with AI agents to get lots more out of it. So if you have a team, the best thing you can do for that team is to really educate them about AI agents and how to implement AI-powered workflows, because you will get lots more out of it instead of trying to recruit more people. Obviously, this needs to be looked at case by case, but as a general rule, I would say think hard before you get on more people in the world of agentic AI, when you can achieve a lot more repeatability than if you had to get humans. So a payback on a typical hire is about 6 months, 3 to 6 months. 3 months if it's a really good hire, 6 months usual hires. AI teams, AI automations, your payback is less than weeks, in most cases. So small AI augmented teams will outperform traditional teams. Now, in the case with Moonrise, I'm going to do a separate video on it, about how I've implemented no-code tools and AI-powered workflows. But literally, you can see I have an Airtable base, for instance. I click on the trigger webhook, which is a little button here. And on the right-hand side, I have a bunch of rows where I get my blog, I get my YouTube video, I get Instagram shots, I get social posts, and it's all ready for me. And since we work with health, I can't just post it. I'm not 100% automated. So I have humans in a couple of different steps there, and they come and make sure it's all quality proofed, right? And then we have a publishing schedule. And that used to be like a team of 4 people writing content, a team of 2 people doing design, and that's gone. That's one Airtable and a couple of OpenAI tokens or Claude tokens. Same with my tech team. I used to have like 5 people working with my platforms, but now I have a no-code tool called Movement in Australia, and they do everything and more. I have my own app. I used to have an iOS team and an Android team. I don't have that anymore. I don't have issues with committing code on 2 different platforms, all these devices. It's beautifully managed for a simple subscription, and they keep developing faster than I'd have ever done. So you have no-code tools for most niches, if not all niches. You have all kinds of AI-powered workflows, free templates out there. There is absolutely no excuse to get started, and it might feel overwhelming where to get started. I'm going to talk about that, but literally not starting is not an option. So guiding rules for your team is, the classic, which I think is more true than ever, is you should be able to feed your team in 2 pizza boxes, otherwise it's too large a team. And most of your ideas can be done in no code, and AI supercharges only workflows that work. So if you have a workflow that's not working, adding AI is not going to help. If you have a value proposition that's not working, adding AI is not going to help. If you have a marketing team that's not meeting results, but just adding AI is not going to help. You need to come back and look at some of the fundamentals we spoke about with positioning, with the direction, with the GTM fundamentals, right? Go-to-market fundamentals. But assuming you have that and you have some workflows that are working, adding AI is like adding a lot of rocket fuel, because that's going to supercharge and you're going to get lots more out of it. So if you're interested in getting more out of this, I'm running an agency where we work with select industries, select partners. You need to have a certain criteria in terms of revenue, but you can see all that information below. And North Star is your AI GTM partner. So we work with creating the roadmap, giving you clarity on the strategy, and obviously implementing workflows in your team and training and onboarding your team. So it's a full-fledged, full ecosystem for making yourself future-proof. And let me summarize them. I almost lost my 1.1 million euro startup. I wish I knew these mistakes before. Some of them are not avoidable, but I hope those that are watching out there, you really pay attention, because some of these things can be really life-changing for you, because it's been life-changing for me. So the first one is to figure out, are you building a lifestyle business or a venture-style business? Completely different business styles, completely different outcome possibilities. Obviously, as a lifestyle business, a lot of them never cross the $100,000 per year mark. Out of the venture-style business, majority of them never make any money. So you have challenges on both sides, but to figure out why you're doing business is super important. The second mistake I spoke about is not niching down enough. And there's a lot of psychological barriers why you don't want to niche down, but literally niching down is great for business, because you're going to get better customers. There's a higher chance of word of mouth, which will reduce your cost of acquisition. You're going to repeat your delivery, which means you can get better margins. So it's great for business, and you can start niching. You can start widening your niche as you start growing. You're not compromising on your vision. You're simply finding a way to exist so your vision can come true at some point. The third thing I spoke about was speed versus direction. So much focus on speed and experimentation, but instead take time to get your direction right. It's not about going faster, it's about going smarter, it's about thinking clearer. So if you know why you're doing what you're doing and who you're doing what for, and it's very clear with your positioning and your differentiation, and that value is tangible, you will find a way to compound your value. But if it's not tangible, going faster it's not going to make a jack of a difference, right? So really think clearer, get your direction, and then add speed. The fourth one is being busy as a founder, as a team. People can get busy for anything. Was actually busy with demand generation. If you have no leads, if you have no demand generation, you have no business. So having a beautiful website nobody cares about is no point. So start by not focusing on things that matter to you, but focus on things that matter to your market, matter to your customers, and start talking in their language. Focus on being problem-aware communication. So talk about the problems that the customer has, and instead of solution, which is your solution, talking about your solution, because nobody cares about it yet. People care about themselves. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is an assessment. So get people to self-qualify, self-diagnose, give them different options where one of them is you, and then being the trusted partner that eliminated the light for them from going from problem aware to solution aware, there's a higher chance they'll pick you. And finally, if you're starting to scale, don't add more team members. Think carefully about an agentic AI strategy that combines AI agents as an organization chart along with human organization chart, and how you can supercharge both. But adding AI workflows for something that doesn't work will not supercharge anything. It'll create a lot more confusion. So really spend time getting the fundamentals of the direction and the value proposition right, getting fundamentals of your go-to-market right, because then adding AI is like adding an explosive fuel that's going to take you to the moon and beyond. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, 5 mistakes that you should avoid, and I'll see you in the next one.